Disclaimer spoiler warning, the following video contains Dishonored Death of the Outsider spoilers. These are my own personal predictions for Dishonored 3. And firstly, I'm gonna place a disclaimer that everything I'm about to say is mostly that of speculation and my own personal aspirations for how I hope to see the game go. However, I am highly aware that this will have an extremely high likelihood of not being anything close if there is in fact a Dishonored 3 revealed. That being said, let's begin. So firstly, I do think that sparing the Outsider is 100% canon for so many reasons. I just had to get that out of my system, so let's get started. Firstly, I do think we will get to play as the Outsider, no question. And I do think they would finally reveal his name to the fans, or just give him a type of filler name if they can't come up with one. For example, they would probably call him something that has an undistinguishing nickname, such as the letter O. For example, that's what I've been calling him, actually. The Outsider is just such an important character of the games that we met him in the first game as this distant being that just sort of sprinkled out powers to those that piqued his interest. In Dishonored 2, we moved closer to his character, that being both physically and metamorphically. We learned more about who he was and interactions with the player. He was more comfortable, less stiff, moving around the player, moving close to the player, and Death of the Outsider, that step was actually taken closer in his direction as Billy having the most physical and longer interactions with him, despite being lesser than the previous games, until he was literally in our arms at the end of the game, regardless of the ending you chose. If this continues to move in that direction, the next logical step would be to do just that, to step into his skin, to finally be the character that we've been moving to this entire time via the story element as we move away from the Crown's Arch, from the assassination of Jessamine, from Dowd, and all the characters involved in that. The Outsider is kind of a final mystery. We still don't know a lot about him, and stepping into his skin would unravel and slake the unknown in the best possible way. And these past games would have paved the road to have the ability to logically see in the direction of the story moving in this way. Years of setup to have this character finally in the grasp to play as we the players. I've even gone as far into this as putting my own personal input for how I think the trailer would look like and what it would be about, and even the undertitle and slogan of the Dishonored series, that being Dishonored, the final chapter. I mean, that isn't too far of a stretch, right? Now about what I think the plot is gonna be about, and other characters. Well, personally, I feel for certain to believe that Billy Lurk will not make a physical appearance in Dishonored 3, aside from perhaps a few storyboards and flashbacks from the Outsider's point of view. However, I'm not excluding interactions with her via news documents and letters and other items that you can find throughout the world. Quotes in the air, the main target will be the Abbey of the Everyman, actually. In that, since the Outsider's rescue, they started losing their grip on society, and that drove them mad, to the point where they declared war on the Crown in an attempt to regain their control. However, the Abbey, in a desperate attempt to maintain their power and sway over people and win the Civil War, they've begun drawing from the void, using it to their advantage, but keeping it a secret from the lower branches throughout the organizations, and only the highest members of the Abbey know of this use. This causes a ripple effect. Since the Abbey is such a massive organization and have many strewn out branches, their draw from the void has a volatile effect on the world, unintentionally, quotes in the air, opening the floodgates and allowing the longest since whisper prophecy come to pass, that being that the void will eventually consume the world. Now, how the hell would our baby whale god become entangled in all this? Well, here's a bit of mine and the Arcane Realm's prediction. It is as such. Billy Lurk, despite being no longer in the game, however I am highly not presuming that she's dead, aided our Outsider for many months after his release before going their separate ways. Billy Lurk probably is hanging out with Sokolov, just being with him for his remaining days. I'm just throwing that out there. But the Outsider, at first, is powerless, just like any other person. However, there are those in the Abbey that have seen his portraits, where he appears in paintings of people that have visited him in the void. I'm not necessarily saying that he visited them, because there's lesser accounts of that than people going to the void and just sort of spotting him hanging out there. But because of that, he is recognized by the Abbey, and immediately, quotes in the air, he's dishonored. Because the Abbey already dishonored him a while ago. But where soon after that, he comes across this massive condensation of hollows, and that concentration of void energy awakes something deep inside our outsider, providing him with his supernatural abilities. Since his connection to the void was a literal bound one, let's say it left a sort of imprint. And there have been countless times where people have whispered once you've been truly touched by the void, it never really goes away. The best example of a person that says that was Corvo in Dishonored 2, if you take him and accept the Outsider's mark. And the supernatural abilities that the Outsider has will probably, actually more than likely, share the cooldown mechanic similar to that of Billy Lurk's ability. I personally speculate that he will have, quotes in the air, one mortal ability that is also awakened when this occurs, something that he had in his human state, which originally drew the cult to him. I personally believe it has something to do with light. As within the song it said, they were drawn to a light, a fading gray, and when you see the Outsider within the void, he has darkness swirling around him. However, you can see a more physical light around him when he is returned to his mortal state in either ending. I speculate that it would give him some sort of replaced heart ability to hear secrets of someone's heart, or more specifically to see the light of someone's heart, or an aura to give some indication of good or bad of the person being viewed. This could also double as a replacement for void gaze, quotes in the air, even if it is more limited. So our Outsider's task is to take down the Abbey from the inside out, and instead of a chaos system, it's more so replaced with a moral compass instead. Now this moral compass can either be good or not so much, which might change his views from everyone deserves a second chance towards no redemption, and treating those he encounters with an unpleasant viewpoint towards kind of similar to that towards the cult that viewed him, or more so like that of a reflection of Billy Lurk's kindness that saved him. Now, I am understandably certain that our Outsider would canonically be low chaos, as it is something that he's managed to literally kind of maintain for over 4,000 years. Also to note on a few arguments I saw about his age, I personally vote that he is 4,015 years old and old enough to drink. So now I'm certain you're wondering, okay, he has powers, he's gonna take down the Abbey, that's great and dandy and all, but what about the void? Well, I have a theory about that as well. First, take into account that the Outsider is literally the only one that's been a part of the void and back again in a way that I'm nearly certain has never been done prior. So I enjoy speculating that the void has some sort of shard. Something like that of a quotes in the air first shard that allowed it to break through the first barrier between the mortal realm and the void's realm in the first place.
Made my job to check all the values from the art between the living and the dead, the real and the forgotten. She watches them crumble.
I believe that the Outsider would not only be able to find the shard, but that he would be able to replace it, mending the void's barriers to its original state, and that he would literally be the only one to do it. Along with the same aspect, I believe that the Abbey of the Everyman, in their desire for more and more, their hunger for power, that want is reflecting from the void's hunger entirely. That they have been looking for a way to control the void, and without the Outsider there, which was their prior use of kind of their prior way of controlling it before he left. But now that he's gone, they're insatiably after more. And the more they draw from the void, the hungrier they become. I suspect that Dishonored 3 will be the last installation of the game, and it would kind of take down two birds with one stone. We may gain a brand new character who would become an ally in the most unsuspected way. Arcane Realm proposes this idea that this mysterious mysterious figure may even be a departed member of the Abbey. From the Abbey, where they're being held in secret, having accidentally discovered the leader's practices in regards to the Void. But that's all I have thus far. As a side note, I'm actually working on a Dishonored 3 unofficial novel in a collaboration with a few friends. However, the project in no way claims that what occurs within the work is part of the canonical timeline from Arcane Studios, and again, is presented completely as a fan's interpretation of our collaborated personal speculations of a plausible direction of Dishonored 3. I'm very excited about the project. I personally believe there will be 9 missions in the game, and that the Abbey will take up 5 or 6 of those, and then the Void the last 3 or 4. The Outsider repairs the barriers, the original barriers, and the Void is cut off in the mortal one for the next million years or so before the Void's like, bitch, I'm coming back. With this, the Outsider loses his powers, and pretty much so does everyone that drew from the Void for their magical workings. And then he probably returns to Billy Lurk, I don't know. And then that's it. That's the end. And that's my theory. Is there any rhyme or reason to it? Not particularly, but do I care? Not particularly. Anyway, if any of this ends up being the case, just know you heard it here first. I call dibs of calling this if any of this comes to pass. Remember that everything I say should be taken with a grain of salt. Nothing I say should be taken as facts that I could be 100% wrong on all accounts. This has been New Life 2586, The King Studios, signing out, guys. Bye!